This is the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge, round 4, week 7. We're halfway there. Greetings, people of the internet. I'm Scott with Serkworks Art Labs. Welcome, mad creators, to the underground laboratory where we create robots, aliens, zombies, and other imminent threats to humanity. We also create comics as part of this 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge. I guess that's the main thing that we're working on, is comics. Some of those comics do feature robots and aliens and all that stuff. Mine features zombies. This is my comic, Young and the Dead. It is a kids versus zombie adventure starring kids. It takes place in the 80s, so imagine Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead if you're a fan of all those old action adventure films starring kids of the 80s, like Goonies, Monster Squad, E.T., Stand By Me, Explorers. There's a whole list of them. And more recent ones would be, you know, like Stranger Things, or even if you guys remember Super 8, that's a really good one. A little more modern, but if you're into that kind of storytelling, you probably dig my comics. So just imagine kids fighting zombies. That's what it's all about, and it's a super fun book, and I'm glad to be working on it again as part of this challenge. So what is this challenge? The 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge was started by Kevin Cross, who was having difficulty putting out his, or creating his comic books and being productive on that, because he just had so much stuff going on. And I know a lot of you people out there are in that same boat. We all have busy lives and everything, and as much as we'd probably love to just be able to draw comic books all day, we don't really get the opportunity to do that. So the idea is that we set aside some time. The original idea for the challenge was just set aside 30 minutes a day to work on your comic book project, and you do that every single day, and you do that for 100 days straight without fail. And while you're doing that every single day, you also give an update on social media. So whether it's on a YouTube channel, you make videos, it's a Facebook post, it's in some sort of like a group or like a Discord or something like that. You can do it on Instagram, whatever platform you want to do, but you got to put that out there to help hold you accountable, and have people cheer you on and create a community around that. And that's what's really cool about this, is because there are people out there to cheer you on and kind of see where everyone. And one of the things I get asked a lot is, do you have to start it, like, is there a certain time you have to start it? No, you can start it at any time. It's just 100 days from whenever you start. So feel free to start it any time. I started at the beginning of the month, the beginning of the year 2021. So it just gives me an idea, so I know how far along I've gone. And doing the calculations, I realized that I am halfway through the challenge. Now, does that mean that I'm halfway done with my comic? No, not necessarily, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, the goal, if you can finish your comic book in that amount of time, that's great, but the goal is just to build habits. And I think they say it's anywhere from like 18 days to 20, or to 56 days or something, somewhere in there. I guess the average is about 66 days. We're about day 50, 52, something like that. So we're halfway done, and we're getting real close to. We're definitely in that time frame where if you've been doing this and you've been doing it successfully every single day, that you're starting to build those habits. And when you do that, I mean, it just becomes second nature. I know when I get up in the morning, the first thing that I do is, before anything else, I go and I get on the computer, and or it's not always a computer. We'll talk a little bit about this as we go in, digital versus traditional, all that stuff. But whatever I'm doing, and I switch around from different ways of doing these things, but I basically get up and I work on my comic book. I'm putting in an hour a day instead of that 30 minutes, just to, because I feel like I can set that time aside. And it may be different from you. You may be able to put in a couple hours a day or more, or but want to keep that bare minimum to 30 minutes a day. I think that's a good thing. And the other thing I'm doing differently is I'm not doing those daily updates. I'm doing weekly updates, and that's just because I've done this so many times that I've pretty much proven to myself that I can do it. But if you're new, starting out, I recommend that you post every single day, because if you wait a week and you're not used to building those habits, you're gonna kind of, you know, maybe you could fall off and everything like that. We don't want that. We want you to be successful with this. So, and it's not as easy as it sounds. So really it pays to do it the way it's set out to do. Unless, of course, like I said, if you've done it like 4 times already, all the way through successfully, then maybe you can play around and you can kind of change it a little bit to your schedule, which is what I'm doing. And speaking of what I'm doing, so how far along am I in this round, the 4th round of me doing this challenge? Well, last week I had finished all the, you know, everything. I've scripted 2 scripts. I've done all my thumbnails, my rough layouts, all my kind of got my compositions down and everything. So if you remember last week, if you were paying attention, or if you happen to catch that one, you know that I said, well, I'm going to start penciling, which is kind of the fun part, and it's the part that I'm happy to share with you guys, because you know, I think a lot of people, when they think of drawing comics, I mean, there are people that, you know, are just specifically writers or whatever, or enjoy the craft of writing, or letterers or whatever, but I think I find most people, they're interested in the art, because unfortunately it's kind of, as much as I love the writing, it's not visually, it's not as interesting to show on a, you know, on a video such as this, where I can throw up my artwork and I can kind of show you my process and everything like that. And that's something that I'll do a little bit here. You'll see, you know, it'll see us kind of switch over for me working on drawing the first couple pages of my comic book. This is the 5th issue of my comic. And so you'll kind of see that process and everything. And I'm also going a little more in depth with that stuff on my Patreon, if you want to check out. I think there's a link at the end of the video. But there I'll kind of go in, you can kind of see almost the whole kind of a sped up version of me working on, you know, on those pages and everything. And I'll go a little more in depth in that. But this one, I want to keep it somewhat short. I know I have a habit of being a little long-winded, but hopefully you get some value out of this and you can learn some things. But the thing that I wanted to talk about today was, I'm doing something a little different, at least for me. I mean, you guys out there, you're more or less, if you're younger, you're probably already doing all your work digitally. Whereas I do a lot of work digitally, but this is the first issue of this book that I've actually started doing the penciling digitally on. I've done some part of that process digitally, like I always do the lettering, the shading, that kind of stuff, and certain things like that I've always done digitally, but I've always done all the penciling. You know, I break out the sheets of 11 by 17 Bristol and lay it out like that, and I've always enjoyed doing that. And partially the reason why it took me so long is just that learning curve of learning a new software, like Clip Studio Paint, which is the program I'm using. And I know there's a lot of other software out there, and we'll get into some of the pros and cons for each, and some of the pros and cons maybe for digital versus traditional and vice versa. The main reason why I wanted to switch to doing digital, I think for me, is just speed, because I found that, you know, it just takes me a long time to put these books out, and I don't want it to take so long. I want to be able to put them out on a more frequent basis, instead of it being a year or more in between issues, because this is sort of a passion project. My book is sort of a passion project. It's not something that right now brings in a lot of money. When I complete the whole story, then I'll probably do a little more marketing, and I'll really try to, you know, push it more. But right now it's just a way for me to put out issues and kind of say, oh, I finished another issue. It's a nice little benchmark, and then eventually I'll complete the story. But now I'm kind of in the mode of, I really want to finish the story, and in order to do that, I've got to find a way to be just a little more efficient with my time and everything. And I think doing this comic book digitally is going to help with that. So as I said, there's a number of different apps and software that you can use to create your comics. I have a lot of friends that work in Photoshop to create their comics. I know people that work in Procreate. I chose to work in Clip Studio Paint. And you know, I know Photoshop pretty well. I use Photoshop for a lot of different things. I don't use Procreate as much. because I don't do a lot of work mobile. I have Procreate, but you know, and I know so many people swear by Procreate and they love it and they create comics on it. And I've seen amazing comic books done, and yeah, this is done on Procreate. I'm going to talk to some of my friends that actually use Procreate and find out a little more why they prefer that. I think most of all, it's probably the mobility. I'm guessing that you can just kind of take it anywhere. Although, you know, Clip Studio Paint does have a mobile version. I think even Photoshop does now. The weird thing about Clip Studio Paint, and one of the advantages, and I think a lot of people, especially artists starting out, more or less they're looking for something inexpensive, because like a subscription to Adobe and, you know, to use Photoshop and all that, it's pretty pricey. So I can see why most people wouldn't, you know, are just not, you know, I think it's definitely worth it if you're doing this for a living and everything. Photoshop is pretty much a necessity, at least for me. Maybe not so much anymore now with Affinity Designer and things like that, but you know, I'm just so used to working in Photoshop. So, but it's not been great for me anyway, of doing comics, because it's not designed for that. Photoshop is designed, it was originally designed for like photo manipulation and then more, you know, painting and things. And you can do tons of things in Photoshop. It's not like you can't do a comic in there, but it's not designed for making comics. Whereas Clip Studio Paint, that program was specifically, originally it was called Manga Studio. I don't know why they changed the name. It's kind of a weird name, but they changed it to Clip Studio Paint. And the idea is, I mean, it was designed from the ground up for making comics. So it has tools in there for designing panels. It has tools in there like perspective tools, which are just amazing. And basically, and the whole community around it, all the people create like files, like, you know, posable files that you can bring in, and it's got tons of like a halftone, you know, screen tone libraries and all kinds of things, all specifically for creating comics. So it's designed for it. It's not like you're trying to take a tool that was designed for something else, like a Photoshop, and trying to figure out a way to do comics in it. It just works so smoothly. So that's why I recommend, you know, Clip Studio Paint. I haven't tried the mobile version, and the weird thing is that the mobile version is a subscription, you know, it's kind of a subscription deal, sort of like Photoshop, which is weird. But the regular desktop version of Clip Studio Paint is like a one-time thing, and it's usually fairly inexpensive. I mean, I think I got mine for, you know, every once in a while they'll run sales. So I think I got mine for like, I think you can get copies for like 50 bucks. I may have paid like maybe 100 or something, but it's a one-time thing and then you just get to keep it. But I think I have the more advanced version. I don't know what the difference is. I think even the basic version you can do tons of stuff with. But I'm finding, you know, this has really sped up the process of me creating this book. So far I've done issues, or not issues, but I've completed page 1 of issue 5, and I'm a good portion of the way, about halfway done with page 2. Page 1, I think it took me a lot longer than it will for page 2, even though page 2 has a lot more perspective and things like that. But these tools that are included in Clip Studio Paint with this perspective tool, it's just amazing. Once you lay out your grid, you know, any lines you draw will automatically like snap to the proper perspective. And of course, there's things like 90-degree angles and things that you have to click off of it to kind of create those, because, you know, there's certain things. If you walk into a room, if there's a chair, not everything is going to be exactly on that grid. A chair might be askew a little bit, and that won't fit with the perspective. You kind of got to draw that. So, but if you want everything just as is, straight on a grid with perspective, it's really great, and it gets you at least about 90% of the way done, aside from those other angles and things that you can draw. But that tool alone is just, it just blows me away. But yeah, Clip Studio Paint is just amazing with all that you can do. And then, you know, digital in general, there's things that just such time savers. The fact that you can scale up and rotate and flip, and yeah, I can import like a logo, like the logo for one of the companies that's in my book. I can import that, and I can skew that and everything. You can import like posable models. I don't do a lot of models because to me sometimes they tend to look a little stiff. But you can do that. There's models available that you can pose and put in, and it's just amazing. So I mean, I highly recommend Clip Studio Paint for, you know, for making comics digitally. But like I said, I know a lot of artists out there are using Procreate, and I mean, of course, I think you can use Procreate on iPads. I don't think you have to have the iPad Pro, which is, you know, there's a pretty big investment in that. And I made that investment and I bought an iPad Pro, and I use it for some sketching and things like that, but I don't know that I could do a comic on it because, for one, the canvas size is kind of small. I'm used to working a little bit larger, and it doesn't have those perspective tools. There's things like that, and I think as Procreate continues to grow, I think they might add some more of these features, but you know, certain things that aren't, you know, in Photoshop or in Illustrator, you can there's like, you can mess with like the line weight, you can add strokes and things to it, and I don't think that that is part of Procreate. And there's just, and I haven't found the drawing tools to be as, you know, as fluid or as intuitive as like Clip Studio Paint. But you know, again, I might be in the minority because a lot of people are using it, creating good artwork. The one thing that I've heard about Procreate is that, you know, when you scale up and down, you can lose that quality. I mean, so I don't know how you avoid that, because it's not like, you know, it's not like a vector program or whatever. And because you're working at, I don't know what the resolution you're setting everything at, but it seems like they said even if you go smaller, which you shouldn't lose quality if you go smaller, but if you do that, and if you keep resizing things, and I do a lot of that digitally because I'm trying to get the right thing, but I hear in Procreate each time you do that, it kind of lessens the quality. I don't know. You guys can tell me, you Procreate users, because I'm really interested, because there may come a time where maybe I will be doing all my stuff mobile, and that may be an option. Although, like I said, there is a Clip Studio Paint mobile version as well. But anyway, I'm finding that, you know, the process seems to be going a lot quicker now that I can take advantage of these digital tools and everything. I will probably still ink traditionally. I'll print out these in like blue lines, and then I'll probably go over them with traditional ink, just so I can match the look of the original, and so I can take those other places and work on them rather than, you know, working just on the computer. Although I still may do some of that inking, especially that perspective stuff, because if I'm going somewhere else where I can bring my books to ink or whatever, my pages to ink, then I have to bring on my rulers and things like that. But if I could do that digitally and not have to worry about that, that's gonna be a big plus. But you know, and there's definitely some cons to working digitally. I mean, you don't get that physical piece of artwork that you could probably turn around and sell. So and more established artists can make a lot of money if there's a demand for the work. I don't know that there's so much of a demand for pages for my book, at least not now. And I haven't really put them out there or said that they're for sale or anything. I think I'll just kind of wait till the whole story's done, and then as it goes on, because, you know, in this crazy world, what if somebody options, you know, my book down the road and becomes a movie and everything, and I've already kind of given those pages out for next to nothing. There may be some value. There's no value in them now, but you never know what's going to happen down the road. So I'm kind of holding some of that original artwork, but that is a source of income that you could use in addition to, you know, just selling your books and everything. And that's something you don't get with digital. You can do like I'm doing with this issue, where you print out your digital files on board and then you ink over it, and then at least you've got something. You've got your digital, or you've got your traditional inks over digital, and you can sell that. And also, you know, you can also monetize digital stuff as well. Like I know a lot of, you know, people who have Patreon, they'll do like speed art, or they'll give out their, you know, their layered Photoshop files or whatever, so you can see that. Or if you're working in Procreate, you know, they've got that speed art thing where you can kind of show that, and that's something that you can give as, you know, a reward or something. So there's ways to monetize even digital artwork, but I don't know if it's quite the same as having that physical artwork. So, you know, there are pluses and cons, and moving away from traditional, you know, that's something I think about. But I think getting this book out there, I think that's going to be the major thing. So that's kind of why I'm switching. And I probably, you know, I'm getting older. I'm kind of set in my ways. So it took me a while to actually sit down and learn the, you know, Clip Studio Paint. But now that I've done it, it's just like, yeah, that's the way I'm going to do it, because it's really speeding up my process and everything. But I'm happy with the pages that I got done so far, and I'm happy to, you know, to be able to show those and to move forward and just hopefully keep at this pace, because I feel like I'm at a really good pace now with this digital, creating these pages digitally. And hopefully, like I said in the beginning, I doubt by the end of these 100 days that I'm going to have the whole book done, but I think I'm going to be further along than I was in previous iterations of this challenge and everything, and the other rounds that I did. So that's the goal, and so far it's going pretty well. But what about you guys? The main thing I want to know from you guys is, do you work traditionally? Do you work digitally? Do you kind of use both? And what software do you use, specifically if you use Procreate? Because there's so many people using it and it's so popular, and I use Procreate when I'm creating, tools and things for Procreate, so I've dabbled a little bit, but I know from an end user standpoint, I still prefer some of the other programs. But like I said, it's so popular, so many people are using it. I'm just wondering why you like Procreate, and maybe just try to convert me if you can, because there's got to be some value in it, because so many people are doing comics in it. But I don't know that screen size. I mean, I like to work big and stuff, so I don't know. I think I'll continue doing it the way I'm doing it. But to each their own. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just your way, and whatever way works for you is the way you should be doing it. But let me know in the comment section how you work. I'm anxious to read those. I will try to get back. I do try to get back to everyone, so don't be afraid to leave a message. If I maybe it'll be a day later. Sometimes I'm busy and I don't get around to it, but I do try to get back to everyone. So leave a comment and I'll see you guys later. That is all.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Also, you can follow me at Serkworks on social media, and now you can support the work that I do on Patreon. Do you like making comics? Then go to Serkworks.com and pick up the Comic Maker Starter Kit. It's packed full of fonts, brushes, templates, and more. And best of all, it's totally free.